All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast. Today is Tuesday, July 22nd. We got SEC Media Days in the rearview mirror. We have fall camp right around the corner coming up at the end of the month and throughout August. So things are starting to heat up. My name is Ric Butler, and obviously, as you can tell if you're watching the video version of the show today, we have a full house in the studio today. I'm joined by all of my Rocky Top Insider coworkers, including our new addition to the team, which we will get to in a minute. Of course, we have Ryan Schumpert, we have Jack Foster, and if you did not miss this on the podcast episode last week talking about Media Days, welcome to the show, Ryan Sylvia. This is the new team going forward. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Ryan Sylvia, I guess I'll start with you today, man. Welcome into the show and welcome onto the team. We've had you for nearly a month now. Things have been rolling, things have been flying, and we're excited to get into the football season to have you.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Feels like it's been 2 days, feels like it's been 2 months at the same time, but it's been good to get going. We posed this question when me and you did our SEC Media Days recap, power ranking the 3 big news items of the last month or so. Rick getting married, me joining the team, and Schumpert getting a haircut. And it was a heated discussion of which one was the most important. So
that did happen. Ryan, I don't know if you had caught that stray, but, he did throw that out there last week. But I said it in a nice way that you got a nice, clean haircut after the baseball season. It's been a while since I think a lot of people have seen you. So that was in a kind and in a nice gesture kind of way. But it was part of the power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rick getting married, definitely 3. Like that's, yeah, I think 1 or 2 you could kind of rank in either way. Yeah, no, the last time the people saw me on camera, Jack and I were recording our stand-up in Fayetteville, and some members of the Andrew Fisher, I don't know if it was family or friends or what, were a little bit drunkenly joined our post game, but that made for some fun. He didn't go 1-1, but 120 is not too bad either.
Hey, he's still the truth, though, right? He is still the truth.
There's no doubt about that. He's still the truth. That was a non-negotiable.
Jack, what about you? How are things going in your world?
Yeah, pretty good. Getting ready for football season. Other gig with Omaha shows is starting to ramp up a little bit. Training some interns as of late, so that's been a lot to deal with. But no, going well. Summer's dying down, and getting ready for football season. Could be happier.
I did see that your guy Greg McElroy, he was high on something Tennessee related. I think that was a video that you guys put out recently. It'll probably end up on the Rocky Top Insider site at some point later today. But what was that about?
Yeah, I mean, that video was made to be positive. I will say that. He's not down on Tennessee, but I wouldn't say he's like high. He was just acknowledged the fact that if the offensive line is above average and Joey Aguilar can look like his 2023 self, the Tennessee's going to be pretty dang good because they have a lot of talent elsewhere. Now, those 2 question marks are big ones, and the wide receiver room is as well. So I don't think Greg foresees Tennessee making the playoff or anything like that, but he did acknowledge that there is upside associated with the Vols and that, hey, they're kind of flying under the radar right now. And if they can reach that upside, who knows?
There you go. We've got a lot more Tennessee football to talk about with, again, training camp just right around the corner coming up at the end of the month and obviously throughout August. So just as a little preview of what the press pass is going to look like, now that it's back in action after a little bit of a summer hiatus, we have basically our full fall camp preview coming up next week, probably next Tuesday, but somewhere around the midweek. So be on the lookout for that as we kind of dive into all the different storylines. Sylvia and I talked about it last week, the quarterback battle, Jermon McCoy's injury update, some of those sort of high-end topics, if you will, around the team right now. But I think we'll come back next week and sort of give more of a deep dive into not just some of the things that we're expecting and that we're looking for out of fall camp, but just some of the storylines here early on in the season that I think are going to be big and prevalent. Of course, with the quarterback battle being at the top of the list. But that all is for a different day. Today, here on a Tuesday, the birds are chirping, the sun is shining. So we decided to have a little bit of fun with our return to the press pass, especially when we have a full house here on deck. And we're having a little bit of fun today. Ryan, can you kind of walk us through a little bit about what's on the menu for us coming up today?
Yeah, I think the folks at Fan Run actually sparked this idea. I want to say, I can't remember which one of those guys it was, but put out like
Cody McClure
put out a Mount Rushmore of best moments, best Tennessee sports moments in the Danny White tenure. So beginning in January of 2021, and we were kind of just bouncing around our thoughts in the group message, or maybe I guess this was a rankings, and we said let's do a Mount Rushmore, and changing a little bit, we're going straight wins, but the timeline kind of works out perfect. 2021, Rick and I started RTI that summer. Obviously Jack was in school at that point, Sylvia was covering stuff, so it kind of lines up with when all of us started covering Tennessee sports, give or take off a little bit. So the timeline works out, and certainly it's been a really good handful of years for Tennessee, and a lot of good choices. So it should be fun.
So a Mount Rushmore draft for the top wins of the Danny White era, kind of stretching from, like Ryan had alluded to a minute ago, 2021 to where we are presently heading into the 2025 football season. And we got to do this randomized, right? Obviously, it's going to be a snake draft. This is not, we're not criminals or anything. This is going to be a snake.
Auction draft.
Yeah, an auction draft. Everybody got their money to sort things out. No, we've got a randomizer, and not a randomizer of the internet. We're old school. I think, Ryan, you have.
People have often said that about Rick, that he's old school.
Yeah, that is true.
Rick wanted to use, some AI nonsense. Let's break out the RTI
Google randomizer.
That's right. Rick gifted me. Looks great. Right before we started recording, wrote 4 names, scraps of paper.
Okay. So, for the record, I don't want 4. I don't want 4. I think that's where things get a little bit tougher.
I think there's a pretty clear 1 and 2, and then a pretty clear 3, in my opinion.
You want top 2. You can survive with any of the top 2, I think.
I'm not sure if that 3 is going to be clear.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
People aren't watching. Oh, I got 2 names, I think. So let me make sure I just got 1. I'm not looking. I'm looking.
No, he's not.
Eyes are wide open.
Give it to me.
Ryan Sylvia.
Number 1.
Bang.
That's tough. That's tough.
Sylvia 1.
Give me a 2. Please give me a 2.
I'm closing my eyes now. Even though Sylvia's, 1 fell out. 1 fell out on the ground. That's going to be the 4th pick.
That's tough.
Rick's number 2.
Okay.
And then
yes,
1 left in here. Jack is number 3, and that makes me number 4. As I said, you just don't want the 4th pick.
Oh, so you drop your own. I think that might be a little bit. So real quick, we're going off of the wins. This is we're all going to make our list here, but you guys are doing your list based on, the just straight up best wins, right? Not, kind of factoring in how the fan base would feel, just sort of how, momentum carries things like that, right?
Most significant wins. Like these, I viewed it as the wins I'm picking were of like a lot, were very significant to that program and that program's growth. That's kind of how I'm seeing it.
I think it's kind of a blend. I think that's the number 1 most important thing, with kind of a blend of how the game went and, how high of a quality of a win it was, which obviously would give regular season wins maybe a little bit more validity. So, I think it's kind of however you want to take it, but I think certainly most, like Jack said, most significant win is, the most important thing in the criteria.
Okay, I did mine based on, how would, Chuck in Campbell County or Gary in Granger County, how would they go about their list? What are they watching? What would they find the most significant? Because I feel like that sort of lines things up pretty quickly. But okay, we have our order. It'll go Sylvia, and then myself, and then Jack, and then Ryan. It'll be a snake draft, so then it'll loop back around. And I think that is fitting. It was not on purpose, but it is fitting that our new addition gets to go first and kick things off with the rankings. Now, I do think that there's, like we had mentioned, there's 2 obvious choices. I'm going to take the other one. But Ryan Sylvia, what is going to be your number 1 overall pick for the top wins of the Danny White era draft?
I think, like you said, there's 2 options that you could argue for here. I think 80 to 90% of people would agree with me. I'm taking the 22 football win over Alabama. Everything that goes into it. It's not as good as what Rick's definitely going to pick in terms of significance in championships and things like that. But it was, I think, not only do you finally beat Nick Saban, not only do you finally get over that hump against Alabama, but it felt like the true, okay, Tennessee football is in good hands with Josh Heupel. You saw spurts of it in 21 where you go 7-5 in the regular season. You look good in some of the big games, and then you start 22 off really strong, obviously. But getting over that hump to beat Alabama, cementing yourself as the number one team in the country at that point and doing it in a 52-49 shootout, last second field goal, field storming fashion. I think you got to put that, considering the importance of football in terms of the Tennessee and SEC fan bases. I think you got to go number one with that one.
Yeah, I agree. I know Jack would have baseball number one. I would have, yeah. I'm with you. I would have football win over Alabama as my top pick.
I think you have a very valid argument for baseball because it's a national championship.
Yeah.
But the weight of football in the SEC country and Tennessee country, it's such a heavy weight. I think a big win over Alabama narrowly tops a baseball national championship.
And how good the game was too. It's
field storm.
It just had when Hendon Hooker and Jabari Small fumbled that ball at the mesh point, and Tennessee fell behind by a touchdown with like 7 minutes left. It's like, all right, well, Tennessee will lose. That's how anytime they've been in a big game like that, where they were close to pulling an upset the last 15 years, something like that happened and they lost.
There's multiple points. I think it was Princeton Fant down the sideline, a pick six that gets returned. Alabama there's no reason Alabama shouldn't have kicked that Will Reichard field goal with 0 seconds on the clock. And for some reason, they keep putting the ball in the air while they're in field goal range, and they give Tennessee 15 seconds to. So there's just so many different moments that I was like, there is no reason Tennessee should win this game. And I think, like we talked right before the picks, it all kind of gets encompassed into what makes the best win. And I think the way it happened definitely holds some weight as well.
And then you have the ending of the game. I mean, that transcended not only Tennessee football, SEC football, college football. That was just a massive sports moment that I think people had their eyes glued to because of everything that was happening. And Sylvia, I think you and I were talking about this on the way home from SEC Media Days. Not that field storming or anything like that had been invented at Tennessee in the fall of 2022, but it sort of gained a new life, with the field goal coming down and carrying the field goal post throughout the streets. And then obviously it got dumped in the river. Now you've seen that happen on a couple of other occasions. It seemed like Tennessee, again, not set the bar, I think necessarily, but just sort of reinvigorated the idea of what and how chaotic a field storming could be. So not only do you have the game, but the moment as well.
Yeah, I'm an old man on field storming, so it was like it was the perfect example of what like a deserved field storming is when you're doing it once every 20 years for truly monumental moments, and not storming the field 2 years later when you beat the same team who went 9-3.
Okay. I think that's a good pick. My first overall pick, it's going to be when Joe Milton stepped onto the. No, I'm going to go the national championship.
That one was. You said it, Joe Milton.
No, I didn't. Joe Milton is not a game. Joe Milton is not a game. I did not say any game there. That would be a moment, not a game. Obviously,
Bowling Green 21
championship.
Yeah. I already got it written down.
No, that's not. No, I don't have that written down, and my paper is the legitimate one.
No, 56-0 Vanderbilt coming back from the South Carolina nightmare.
That was a different game.
That was great. Like Sylvia had alluded to, it's a national championship, and it was Tennessee's first in quite some time. It was just it was a euphoric moment for the Tennessee fan base. Just the couple of years that it took to build up and get there. You had the disappointment with 2022. You had 2023 season that was its own. But then 2024 comes around, and you feel like you've got this new team that can take Tennessee to those heights. You go to the SEC tournament goes in Tennessee's favor with, I believe, the tournament win over LSU, setting things up. But then just getting to that game and being able to beat Texas A&M to capture that championship. A monumental moment for reasons that don't need to be spoken. I think everybody knows them. But then again, just the life and the celebration that created in Knoxville. You guys were at the game, and that's certainly somewhere I would much rather be at. But I got to be sort of right there in the front and in the middle of that parade going through Gay Street in downtown Knoxville and seeing Tony Vitello on the Maserati. I think it was that car, but on the sports car, and it looked like, the Beatles, or it looked like just the biggest music band that you could possibly think of going through the streets and getting just absolutely crowded by all these people. It was just a moment unlike anything else. I even was scrolling through Twitter yesterday and saw the video of somebody posting of Tony Vitello saying, you're either a Vol or you're not. Just everything that sparked and everything that it created. But the game itself, that win over Texas A&M and narrowly getting it done. And you guys have a better memory when it comes to me in baseball, but some of the plays that led into what that championship win was during that series with the Aggies. It was just nothing short of incredible. So I would agree with you. For me personally, it would be the Alabama, but I have no problem taking the national championship as my overall number, or as my personal number one pick. And I think that those two, again, like we alluded to, are fairly consensus choices.
I get taking football first over Bama, of course, everything that was said, but 2 words: national championship. Gold brought home. And Tennessee, as an athletic program, has struggled to do that. It had been decades almost, I think, since Tennessee had done so in any sport.
2008.
2008, right. So almost 2 decades, 16 years. Tennessee baseball brought it home. They got it done. And in an amazing game, like you said, so many moments in that game. And, the Aaron Combs smile right before slamming the door is a generational, iconic Tennessee athletics picture. There's just so many aspects to that game in itself, and also just it being the national championship rubber match of that series. I think it's got to be one. It's probably a 1A, 1B in my book, but man, that game is going to go down in Tennessee lore, especially if it becomes the only one, which I don't believe it will be, but if it does, it'll be even more significant.
Yeah, I would agree to 1A, 1B aspect. I will say underrated, very underrated elite moment from that series, not game 3, but game 2, with the Dylan Trilling home run. Like, that just lifted an unbelievable weight off of Tennessee's shoulders. Like, everybody will remember the Hunter Inslee slide for good reason. Everybody will remember the Aaron Combs smile after balking. But, like, I think that Dylan Trilling home run will be one of the main moments that sits with me.
Yep, that's fair. Ready to move on?
Yeah, Jack, I think you've got a couple of different options here. I'm intrigued to see where you go with it.
Yeah, Schumpert said before we started, I think before that, there was a kind of a clear 3. I disagree. I think there's a ton of options here. I struggle with where to go, but maybe this is a surprise. I'm going to go to basketball, and I think there's 2 top basketball options to do here. Maybe y'all would take the other one, but I'm going to do the most recent one and take the win over Kentucky in the Sweet 16 to advance to the Elite 8. I don't know, back-to-back, making back-to-back Elite 8s, and this time doing it without all-world Dalton Connect. I know Chaz Lanier had an amazing season, and you had other great players on this past team, but I think if Rick Barnes' only Elite 8 appearance was, with DK, it would have a little bit of an asterisk to it just because of how good Connect was and how memorable that season was. So to do it with this team that, had, I think, more ebbs throughout the regular season than the 24 team maybe did, or at least wasn't as exciting, guys or fans weren't bought into the team early on.
Not at all.
Play. So to do that with this team and to really do it in dominant fashion over your bitter rival too, over Kentucky, I think propels it over some other huge basketball wins of this decade. So I'm going to take the 2025 NCAA tournament win over Kentucky as my first round selection.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. I thought you being such a baseball guy and not as much as a basketball guy, Jack, I was hoping you being 3 would allow that to slip to me. But, I mean, to me, it's the biggest win in Tennessee men's basketball history. So, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. Like you said, for Kentucky to have won the 2 regular season games, and all the talk of it being a bad matchup for Tennessee, and Tennessee went out there and just beat that ass, really, more than anything. Like, I think that's, to me, that's the clear number 3.
See, I had the Creighton game above that one.
See,
wow.
Why?
I'm sure that's got to get taken off the list.
Well, let's wait until we get. I'm sure it'll get taken.
Yeah, well, we can. I'm sure that's soon to come off, so we can wait for that.
I will just say the reason I think this Sweet 16 win was better is because it shows that nothing was a fluke and nothing was so reliant on DK. It is more of a Barnes win. It's more of a Tennessee basketball win, in my opinion, and the fact it happened against Kentucky.
Yeah, it was a rivalry matchup in the NCAA tournament, right? Which is something that's
the 2.
Yeah, something that's just altogether special and historic in some ways. I do think that, and especially you had a place in Indianapolis hosting that thing where both teams could go to. If I remember correctly, that Creighton game was in Detroit, and obviously Tennessee fans showed up for that. But another place that Tennessee have been, whether it's Orlando or New York City or things like that, that was a place that was accessible for both fan bases, and you saw them both there. As if it was just a neutral site regular season matchup. So I agree with you guys. I think the rivalry just kind of takes that to a next level. And then the fact that Tennessee had already lost to them twice in the season and sort of needed to make a statement there in Mark Pope's first year to not just get shut out in 3 games, in the first year of new Kentucky basketball administration. I think that was a huge kind of statement win to advance to the next round of the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Am I good to go?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, my first one on the snake, I am taking Florida football 22. I think that's a win that loses some luster in hindsight, but I think you go back to the time and look at it. Tennessee still really hadn't done anything under Josh Heupel. Tennessee had one win over Florida in the 20 years prior. It was still very much like the Tennessee can't beat Florida narrative. So I think I think people forget how competitive that game was. I think people remember Florida kind of storming back late and kind of think it was a little bit more of a one-sided game. Tennessee was down for most of the first half. The 99-yard drive, I think, will live in infamy right to go into the half. Tennessee double-dipped. And then I think one of the most forgotten about plays in the Josh Heupel era, really no one could get a stop in that second half. And Amari Thomas punched the ball out at about the 15-yard line. Florida was driving in trying to tie the game, and that's kind of when Tennessee took control. So I'm going with that with my first pick, and I'll loop it back around on the snake. And I'll take Alabama football 24. I'll go back-to-back football. I think proving, Jack, you talked about it. I think or maybe it was Sylvia with the Alabama proving at 22. That Josh Heupel was they were there. I think 22 to 24 win kind of proved that wasn't a fluke and proved that all right, Nick Saban's gone. This rivalry is not going to be the way it's been. Obviously, Tennessee had lost in Tuscaloosa in 23 in a game that they played terrible in the second half and. Kind of gave that game away. So I'll go 24, help Tennessee get to the playoff. A legendary game, I think, with some legendary moments. The Jermon McCoy pick, the Will Brooks pick to seal it. Alabama's last 4 drives didn't get a first down. I think those are the second and third best football wins of the last 4 years.
I was kind of surprised you took Florida over LSU because LSU is a better team that year. And I know the rival aspect, but the fact that LSU was on the road, Tennessee was, I don't remember the line or anything, but, Tennessee was really expected to beat Florida that year. It felt like, if I recall going into that game, I know you said Tennessee hadn't done anything really under Heupel. That's correct. But I feel like the LSU one, with it being a blowout on the road, it just put Tennessee in another level to me as a player in the SEC that season than the Florida win did.
I do think that's one. See, I think there's a little bit of hindsight to that where at the time it didn't feel like LSU was that good. Like they had barely gotten by a terrible Auburn team the week before. And then LSU kind of turned it on after that game where I think in hindsight, you look back at the season, you're like, that was a really good win. Whereas the Florida, they kind of stumbled. I think, and don't get me wrong, it was, and you're right, Tennessee, I'm looking at it now, Tennessee was 11-point favorites over Florida that year. I want to say they were maybe field goal favorites over LSU. So not to act like it was expected at all, but I don't know. It just had a little different feel to me. The LSU game felt like while it was a phenomenal win for Tennessee and a truly awesome situation with how many Tennessee fans that were there and how empty the stadium was in the fourth quarter, it almost felt like at the time it said, just not more, but just as much about LSU as it did Tennessee.
Okay. Well, that makes it easier on me then. I was going to go football with my second pick. I honestly think a basketball win should probably go here, but football is just king, and I need to have a football pick with my first 2 rounds, I think, to have a competitive team here when we look at our 4. So I'm going to take the LSU win, like I just said. I think it put Tennessee in another level of a player in the SEC. It showed how legit they were that year. Hendon balling out, the receivers balling out that game. It was just a statement down there in Baton Rouge, and Tennessee fans showing out as well. That win, I remember where I was watching that game, and I'm like, man, Tennessee is the real deal this year. And I don't know if I quite felt that against Florida. Like you said, Tennessee was really expected to win that game. And it just didn't have the same feel to me. But that 40-13 blowout in Baton Rouge, man, it just had a different vibe. And, of course, they followed up with the number 1 pick overall in our Mount Rushmore draft here. But, yeah, that LSU win, I still remember very vividly. Also, you talk about hindsight, Schumpert, you're correct. But that LSU team did make Atlanta, and the quarterback of that team won the Heisman the following season. So you beat some – a huge big time player ultimately, and then you beat a team that ended up having a really good year.
Well, and I love that LSU win as well, and it was very high on my list. I wish I could have gotten to it maybe next. But it was just such a big statement win, and I know that was just the second season of Josh Heupel's tenure here in Knoxville. And, you go, what was it, 7-5, and then I think 7-6 overall with the bowl loss in that first year. And then to come out and have such a statement victory like that. And Ryan's right. I mean, it wasn't an LSU team that was looked at as a world beater at the time, but it was still LSU in Death Valley. And what could have been a great uniform matchup, I will go back and say that, man, I wish that Tennessee had just worn some traditionals, because that would have been gorgeous. But the fact that Tennessee just blitzed them and thumped them. I mean, Ryan and I, to go behind the scenes, we stayed with a huge LSU fan and his family while we were there, and they were just completely dejected. They had nothing left to say afterwards. And I don't think that you could have asked any LSU fan in Baton Rouge on that weekend, did they expect that to happen? And then did they have anything to say about it afterwards? Because it was just so definitive. And you're right. It was sort of that first moment of, again, Tennessee had put together some nice showings in that first 2021 year. If they had beat Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin's return at Neyland, I think that could have been a contender for one of these picks, but they didn't. So you look at that LSU game as really kind of the first statement win. And then again, it just being on the road, I think that was massive for the program.
Yeah, agree with all that. To your point, Jack, it was much more of feeling like Tennessee was nationally relevant. I will agree with that compared to the Florida win.
All right, Rick.
Okay.
You're up, right?
All right. I think some people might want me to take a baseball game here in this slot.
Nah.
There's a basketball game here I think that could go in this slot that I might come around to. But I like end of the year moments. And so I'll kind of go back to what I was teasing at the beginning. I think beating Clemson in the Orange Bowl is a huge moment, just because it's a New Year's Six game. I know that is not where Tennessee wanted to be at the end of the year. That was after the South Carolina disaster, and obviously after Hendon Hooker's injury that had happened. So you have Joe Milton sort of stepping into the scene and setting up what would become during the 2023 season. But again, just a New Year's Six bowl against somebody the caliber of Clemson, a head coach the caliber of Dabo Swinney, and for Tennessee to go to Miami and be able to just take care of business. I believe it was 31-14. I don't think it was really ever in doubt too much. You had a couple big plays with Joe Milton throwing the 20-ish yard touchdown to Brew McCoy in the back of the end zone. It wasn't the most notable, 4 quarters of gameplay that I think we'll certainly have on this list, or even maybe some picks behind it. But I do like the magnitude of what that New Year's Six bowl was able to do, being able to put that on, Tennessee's resume, especially with Josh Heupel at the helm. I think that was a great one. And again, it was a moment for Tennessee fans to enjoy sort of, what had been a real headache of the last couple of weeks of the season, with losing potentially that playoff spot, losing your quarterback, losing to South Carolina on the road. For Tennessee to sort of have that feel-good moment at the end of the year, be able to capture a New Year's Six bowl, I think that was a great moment. So I'm going to go with the Orange Bowl for my second pick in that slot. Again, I know there's some better actual games that might come after this one as well. But in terms of a moment, I think that was a pretty great one that, besides the college football playoffs, that was really kind of the highest postseason level that Tennessee has been to in the Josh Heupel era. Where am I? What do you guys think about that one? Is anybody going to hate on it?
A little bit higher than I would have, but I can see the argument for sure. It felt like a program win too, to do it with Milton and not Hendon.
Sure.
So, it was not just about that 22 team, and Clemson, even though they had fallen a good bit by then, what Clemson was in college football and the 2000 teams, doing it over them, I think, even though, again, they were not nearly as good, they were favored in that game. I don't think many expected Tennessee to win. I feel like all the buzz was around Cade Klubnik's first start, and for Tennessee really to win largely with defense. Their defense was so good in that game, and a year to defense was very good. I can see the argument for sure.
Exceptional in that game.
I think that built certainly a lot of hype to not only just Joe Milton, but Squirrel White. I remember that started the Squirrel White going into his sophomore year as well. So I had that one a little bit lower on the list as well. Maybe it's the Joe Milton bias for Rick there, but there's certainly arguments there for it to be up there, considering New Year's Six bowl and everything that goes into that.
Yeah.
Okay, Sylvia, you got 2 picks coming up to get us into the third round and in the second round here.
I love how the board fell to me here. I'll go with the pick we were talking about earlier. I'll go Creighton in 2024, the Dalton Connect year. To me, I put that when maybe this is a little bit silly of a reasoning. I think it's fair to say the 24 team was if they play head to head, I think that 24 team beats the 25 team because of the Dalton Connect factor.
Yes.
I think there was 2 teams in the entire country that could have beat Tennessee that year, and it was Purdue and it was UConn, and they ran into Purdue in the Elite Eight. Now, you can't change who you faced, and I can't remember at that point if we knew it was Purdue or not, or if that game came afterward. But for me, that team feeling a little bit better, and it being the first time that you returned back to the Elite Eight since back in the Bruce Pearl days, that felt like it held a little bit more significance to me, that you were finally able to get past that Sweet 16 round. We saw what happened when they played Purdue back in 2019 on a team that was definitely good enough to make a Final Four, Elite Eight, or do whatever they wanted to, and they just got unlucky, or whatever you want to call it, at the end of that game. So for them to break through, if you want to call it that, to the Elite Eight round, obviously the expectations are now higher than the Elite Eight, and you're trying to make that first Final Four. But to finally do that under Rick Barnes, that's why I slotted that just ahead of the Kentucky win. Although it being Kentucky, I definitely see the argument for that, considering the rivalry and the stakes and everything that goes into that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Point.
And Tennessee was, I think, like 1-7 in Sweet 16 games, so there was definitely like a hump to get over. And I mean, just preparing for this, like I just remembered how much I loved that 2024 Tennessee team. There were so many games from that season I had on the list, so it felt like, Tennessee did have something. They won the SEC regular season outright for the first time in 15 years, but to be able to add an Elite Eight and another kind of thing it felt very, I don't know, reassuring of that team's legacy, I guess. And it was a really good game too. I mean, the 17-0 run where Tennessee took control, but Creighton came charging back, and DK hit 2 huge threes late when the game got to 1 score. So yeah, it's phenomenal value pick for that to have fallen to 8. Phenomenal value pick.
For my next pick, I don't know how high you guys would have had this one, but I don't know if it would have fell back to me through a whole nother time. So I'm going to take it now. I'll take the UConn win from last year for the ladies.
Yeah.
I think that was...
I was curious if you were going to risk letting it get back to you on the snake.
I can't, as the resident Lady Vault guy, I don't think I can go this draft without taking the UConn game. So I'll take that
value pick, but one that deserved to get picked at some point for sure.
It felt like on the women's basketball side of thing, like the Alabama 2022 game, where it was like, okay, you beat that team that you haven't in so long. And it's a little different because you didn't play UConn every year at that point, but you finally did break the streak, and it felt like, okay, like you were in good hands with Josh Heupel now that you've seen him beat Alabama. Okay, this Lady Vols program's in good hands with Kim Caldwell. She was so close to winning so many ranked big games right before that, and she finally got over that hump, and it was so quick. Like, who would have thought in year one that you beat the UConn team that goes on to be the national champions and produces Paige Beckers and has just such a stacked roster? You're able to do it. So I think for a lot of the same reasons that we talked about that Alabama football game going 1-1, I think it's a similar vein to why that UConn game for me is a good spot to be picked here.
Yeah, I think the hindsight element of it too. Like, I don't know, Sylvia, you follow it a lot closer than I do, but UConn was certainly really good. I think everybody knew they were really good, but it didn't feel like they were the best team in the country at that point when Tennessee beat them. So for them to go on and win the national championship, for them to shellac South Carolina twice, like, I think that you're right. That win feels all the more impressive, and maybe not significant. I think it was all extremely significant on its own standing, but added even more impressiveness to it.
I think it was just I don't think it needed that to be an all-time great win, but I think that it certainly maybe boosted it up to this spot instead of maybe trying to get it on the time around. Maybe it would have fallen a little bit further if UConn flamed out that season, didn't finish strong. But the fact that, they ended up being the best team in the country, that certainly helps it standing.
All right, back to you, Rick.
All right.
Ryan and Jack, are one of you eyeing the Florida State College World Series game?
By committee, have a little conviction.
Imagine Jerry Jones calling Arthur like, "Yo, Arthur, are you eyeing this guy? Because if you are, I'm going to take him. But if you're not, maybe I'll let him pass."
I'm just curious. You guys got 4 picks after me. I'm just curious. I have that one or another one. I do think it's going to get taken here in a minute. But I'm going to kind of continue my streak of just end of season, late season type of gold moments. I'm going to take Tennessee's 2022 SEC championship win. I think, it's hard to leave an SEC championship tournament championship off the board. And again, you have that regular season one that's on the table 2 years later as well. But again, that was a year in which you had to defeat a rival in Kentucky in the semifinals to get to that championship game, and then beating A&M pretty convincingly. I believe it was somewhere around a 15-point win, maybe 65 to 50 something along those lines. I felt like that was just a statement win for Tennessee, and then it's always good to get a little bit of gold as well. So I know the other one again that I alluded to that I was thinking about was that Florida State win, and I'm sure somebody will get around to talking about that here in a minute. But just being able to add that championship, that tournament championship under your belt on your resume, I think that's a big moment, and certainly nothing that can just be passed over. So the two games that led you to get there, and then obviously the win over Texas A&M by a pretty good amount, by 2 touchdowns. That's what I'm picking. What's the matter with you down there?
I feel like Bernie Sanders. Whoever, I don't even know if we're doing a graphic. Whoever's
what's all this
doing
waving
graphic,
about?
It's game. You don't get to lump in all 3 games in the SEC tournament. No.
I'm talking about the game, but I'm talking about the game, but you wouldn't have gotten there without that win previously. So it sets it up.
It does, but on the graphic, it should say SEC tournament championship game over A&M, which is why this one's tricky, because the Kentucky win the day before in semifinals was the more notable win. Closer game over Kentucky. But it kind of felt like that game was the SEC tournament championship. Like whoever won that was going to win the next day.
Yeah, because A&M made a crazy Cinderella run, right?
They did.
Yes, they were an 8 or a 9 seed in the tournament. So you felt like Tennessee was supposed to handle business.
Yep.
Well, no,
and Auburn was the 1 seed who had gotten knocked off. So it was like Arkansas and A&M, Arkansas was better than A&M in the other semis, but it wasn't 2 of like the very top teams in the conference.
That was a charge called Jalen Williams here.
That was.
Rick, that is the correct pick, and I'm glad you took it because I didn't want to have. I want to have some balance here. That was the top of my big board. It was actually above a lot of other picks that had gone. So I was gonna have to take it if you didn't, but I didn't want to have 2 basketball because I'm a baseball guy. I want some baseball on my team. 3rd pick here. I'm doing it. There's a ton of candidates here. There's wins to get to Omaha. There's an Omaha win that flies under the radar in Tony's tenure so far, but I'm going to take the one you mentioned, the Florida State win, the absolute thriller. It rivals the 23 Clemson Regional as the most exciting win in the Tony Vitello era. I think it honestly probably is one just because it happened in Omaha.
Too.
Yeah, Wright State, of course. Christian Moore hitting for the cycle, the Dylan Dryland walk-off. So many awesome moments in that game. Such a high-scoring affair. It's really a SEMO legacy game, and kind of it obviously didn't put a cap on his season because he played more games, but that is the poster child for the type of year he had with all the crazy games he had and one of the best seasons in Tennessee baseball history. People will look at that game first. So Tennessee beating Florida State with one of the best pitchers in the country on the mound for the Seminoles in that game as well.
Yeah.
Really propelling Tennessee to a favorable draw the rest of the way and coasting ultimately to that national championship series against Texas A&M. If Tennessee doesn't beat Florida State in this game, I don't think they win the Natty. And last thing I'll mention on the game, of course, the check swing, which will live in Florida State fans' heads for all the wrong reasons forever and live in Tennessee fans' heads for all the right reasons forever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a truly legendary game, and you're right. I think the fact that anyone that's ever listened to Jack and I on a postseason podcast pre-regional has heard me say the key to winning the regional is to win the first 2 games. And that's the same way it is in the College World Series. If you don't win that first game, it's really, really hard to make the championship series. So, yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, just to add to the SEMO part, SEMO hit for the cycle, and then with Tennessee down to their last out, had a double on top of the cycle. Like one of the very best performances. And I'll just say, I think I said it at the time or tweeted it at the time. The fact that from our sake, I got to cover, and for Tennessee's fans' sake, got to watch Dalton Connect and Christian Moore back-to-back was unbelievable. We'll probably never see a 4 months of just dominant play from Tennessee athletes, 2 Tennessee athletes back-to-back again.
Yeah.
That's another draft right there. Just who was the best at their sport, something like that.
Yeah.
It's in
that'll be fun.
the same era. Because I mean, you can go to Hendon Hooker. You can go to the lady ball side of things with Rickea Jackson and people like there have been some heavy hitters across all the sports recently.
Pickens.
Yeah, they really have.
Carlin Pickens might be the number one pick of that draft, and she doesn't get talked about nearly as
Kiki
much.
Malloy would be up there too. I feel like.
I mean, we haven't even brought up Liam Doyle's name, who just torched all of SEC play this past year. So that could be its own draft in its own right of just who have been the best players at their given sport in that Danny White era.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. I love what fell to me. I thought the College World Series Florida State game would not fall to me. I figured Jack would scoop that up if it got to him, but I'm fine with it because I think this one's equally big. 2021 LSU Supers. Yep. Tennessee makes Omaha for the first time under Tony. It just felt like Tennessee, they punched above their weight a good bit that year and had a lot of moments where they were trying to prove that they were legit. Like you saw the signs in 2019 of an improving program. I think we all think the 2020 team was going to be a special one if COVID hadn't ended it. So for Tennessee and again, they barely got by Wright State, but to get to LSU, they'd swept LSU and they were all, Paul Maneri and the nasty, nasty fans. And for Tennessee to send them into retirement with really 2 dominant wins and get to Omaha, like that was a major, major milestone for Tony's program. And to get the Vols, to where they are now is one of the 2 best programs in the country.
Yeah,
and then my
I
second
think that's a great pick.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer to me. That was next, yeah.
Found that.
And then my second pick, the most underrated win in the Danny White era. So glad it fell to me. I got to get a hoops pick in here. 2023 Duke, round of 32.
Yeah,
incredible win. If it wasn't for what Tennessee had done the last 2 years, I think I would argue one of the biggest wins in Tennessee men's basketball history. Zakai is hurt. That team scuffled down the stretch of the season. I think they got to number 2, I think, in AP poll the first week of February, and they were basically 500 from there on out to the NCAA tournament. Duke had won like 12 straight games. They were a media darling pick to make it to the Final Four. No one thought Tennessee was going to win that game. Tennessee was like 4-point favorites, and I remember everybody talking about, wow, like Duke's easily going to cover this game. Olivier Camois goes off in the second half.
Yeah,
really carries Tennessee offensively. And I will say that was literally peak. Rick Barnes can't win in March was that time. Tennessee had lost in the round of 32 the year before to Michigan, and kind of gotten upset in the round of 32. So for Tennessee to win that game, I think that quieted a lot of naysayers. And obviously Tennessee's done so well the last 2 years. They've all the more so done that. So, and to do it against a legendary program like Duke, I think adds to all the more, kind of makes it the more impressive win or just more monumental win.
That's what I was going to say. Just the fact that happened against, Duke, that type of program. It's like, Duke. Okay, Tennessee, like you said, it struggled down the stretch, didn't have high hopes going into the tournament. You get past an easy first round game, but then it's like, okay, you got Duke.
And barely, too. They won by like 6 against Louisiana.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, you got Duke. This is where it ends. Classic Tennessee bow out in the round of 32. But no, overcome that. And it's crazy how much the optimism around that postseason run shifted before that game to after that game, because that, quadrant of the bracket had so much chaos happen that's like Tennessee could make the Final Four, but then FAU happened. So it was short-lived, but there was so much optimism after that win.
Yeah, I think FAU is probably why it doesn't get FAU and what Tennessee's done the last 2 years is probably why it doesn't get more love. Because it did, it felt like a missed opportunity. But even for that team, the way they had struggled to lose probably their second best player to injury to be able to win that game. And then Euros punking Kyle Filipowski, like Jay Billis whining the all next week of, Tennessee's playing football. Like it was beautiful in so many ways. And the Kyle Filipowski, I remember saying nothing was ever more fitting than Kyle Filipowski faking an injury when Wake Forest stormed the court the next year. And I was like, okay, yeah, now I understand how Euros Plasic punked this guy. This guy is soft as Charmin.
And I don't know if you might have mentioned a second ago, I was looking down at my list and what's to come, but the fact that it was just an uninspired win over Louisiana in the round before. So you just didn't know if Tennessee was going to have the juice, but man, they rose to the occasion, and you're right. They knocked out a blue blood in a statement win to get to the next round and to get to New York City, right? That was the next stop after after that little, duo of games right there.
Here, I'll give you a little trivia question to see if anyone can get this. Tennessee had 2 players in that Louisiana game scoring double figures. Did any of y'all remember who those 2 players were?
Well, I wonder if it's a Tyreek Key because you're asking this question.
Tyreek Key, leading scorer with 12 points.
And Julian Phillips would be my guess just because of the way you're asking it.
No, Julian Phillips had 1 point in that game.
Oh, okay. Very fitting. Triple J?
Triple J had 8.
Santi?
Very balanced scoring. Olivier had 8. Euros had 8. Vescovy had 3, which again, he only took 3 shots that game.
Did this?
A young man that was starting at point guard that night for the Vols.
Jemai Meshack?
Yep, Jemai Meshack. 11 points on 4.
I forget about. I did not have that pegged.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Jack, I think we're back up to you.
Yep. I have 1 baseball, 1 basketball, 1 football. So I'm going to double up on one of those. Which one? I think there's strong candidates, a ton for baseball, which is where I'm going to go. But I do think there's other candidates for, I don't know, man. Like I think Ryan just took the last big basketball candidate because I'm looking at a lot of postseason. Tennessee has had so much postseason success across all these sports that you kind of have to look there. There's a ton of regular season moments for men's basketball as well. Football, I think we've exhausted most of the big ones. So I'm going back to baseball, sport I like most. And this is where it's moment versus game because Tennessee reaching Omaha in 23 with Chase Burns going absolutely insane in Hattiesburg is an unbelievable moment. But that game was a little bit less competitive. It's not as memorable, the game itself, than the Clemson regional game. Tennessee, of course, season would have ended if they hadn't beat Southern Miss in game 3 of that Super, but Tennessee doesn't make Omaha, doesn't even get out of the Clemson regional if the Vols lose to Clemson in that game 1 of the regional that they played. So that's where I'm going. The Zane Denton homer in the 9th to ultimately force extras, and then all the crazy things that happened in extra innings. You had Ethan Payne having moments. You thought the game was over like 3 or 4 different times, and it just kept going into, I believe, the 14th inning was where it stopped. Tennessee gets it done. Hunter Inslee comes up huge, and that game will forever be ingrained in my mind. And while it didn't send Tennessee anywhere, it didn't even clinch the regional, it's still it's the reason Tennessee ultimately made Omaha in a season that had so much just struggle associated with it. A quick SEC tournament exit, and to come out there and just find a way to win that game was unbelievable. So that's where I'm going. And of course, Chase Burns' elite relief performance, that was 100+ pitches, was unbelievable as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I would go with that over Southern Miss. I mean, it was trying to write a game story hell with how much that game changed. Ethan Payne, the most important stretch in Tennessee history.
Yep.
Double play that was called safe on the field. Tennessee had lost for the time being. And yeah, I mean, Chase Burns was unbelievable. Seth Halverson was unbelievable. And it started with an incredible pitching matchup at Dolander versus Grice. Grice pitched into the 9th inning. Dolander pitched into the 5th inning. Chase Burns and Seth Halverson combined to pitch 9.2 innings, 9 2/3 innings. Clemson used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 relief pitchers, and their starting pitcher got 2 outs in the 9th inning.
He's one out.
He was a pitch away from a complete game shutout, and they used 2, which shows how, that was the strength of that Tennessee team, how good their bullpen was. And certainly Dolander and Halverson were both nails that day.
0-2 count against Zane too, right? In that AB?
I believe so.
I know he was at 2 strikes. I think it was 0-2.
Also early big game Hunter moments. He had the RBI double that gave Tennessee the lead in the 14th inning.
Yep.
Good pick, Jack. My final pick, I'm going to stick with the basketball court. The one that came to mind that I would have loved to have picked if it didn't turn into a loss was Dalton Knecht's 39-point showing against North Carolina going into the Dean Dome and putting up a performance like that. But I'm kind of stuck between 2 Auburn picks, both Auburn 2024 and then Auburn 2025 this past year in the SEC tournament after you lost earlier in the season in Auburn to come back for Tennessee to be able to do that. But I'm going to go with the 2024 game, and that was the Dalton Knecht masterclass. That was the tie to career high 39 points. That game being in Knoxville, I just remember it being one of the most raucous environments that we have seen yet. But Dalton Knecht goes 12 of 21 and 5 of 8 from behind the 3-point line. But the stats on that one, as you guys have been alluding to with other games, didn't just tell the story. It was the moments that happened during that game. Dalton Knecht going up and just playing, just using Janai Broome as a toy, and being able to step back and hit that 3-pointer, being able to drive by him. He made him look stupid a couple times or silly a couple times. And that really was just, again, a late February game for Tennessee. So there was still more to come in that season. But just such a statement game that, Dalton Knecht was ready to lead Tennessee into the postseason, was ready for the things to come that would eventually come for that basketball team. I just remember it being such a massive moment. And again, Auburn holds weight with this Tennessee fan base, with the Bruce Pearl connection, with a little bit of a mini rivalry here in basketball over the last couple of years. That was just a phenomenal statement win. And again, it's something that's hard to forget with Dalton Knecht nearly going for 40 points, which is the same scoring number he did have in that game against North Carolina before he kind of got hobbled up a little bit at the end of the game. So I'm going to round my list off with another basketball and go with the 2024 Tennessee-Auburn game. Tennessee wins that one by a score of 92-84 in just a massive offensive showing in Knoxville.
I love it.
I was between that one and another Tennessee men's basketball game for my final pick. So you made it easy for me. This past year,
okay, you're welcome.
I think I take that over the Auburn SEC tournament as well. So for me, that's where I'm going to go with it. Just once again, it's a rival.
What game is it?
The Alabama game where Jemai Mashak hits the half-court shot from this past year. It's a rivalry. It's, once again, like the Alabama football game I picked, just a ridiculous ending. Proud of the Tennessee fans for not giving in and storming the court, because Tennessee basketball is too good of a program to be storming the court. So I was happy to see that as well. But just a remarkable ending, remarkable game. I go there with that to finish it out. I have 3 quick honorable mentions. Number 1, men's basketball versus Texas in 23. Great atmosphere, great game. Number 2, Lady Vols.
The debut of the script jerseys, I believe
exactly.
that was the debut of the alternates.
Number 2, Lady Vols beat South Carolina under Kelly Harper. COVID crowd, not many people there, but you beat Mon Staley, and it was months after Danny White got hired. I think, I got to throw another Lady Vols game just in the mix.
Yeah.
Here's something that I ran my entire list. I had 16 games by my girlfriend's family before this last night to make sure I didn't miss anything big. They all were shocked that I had at number 16, all the way down there, the Wright State baseball game. They were like, that's a first-round pick. Absolutely, without a doubt, that's going in the first 4 picks.
They're thinking about exciting finishes. They're not thinking about significance.
This is just the moment counts, but that's
this was a moment.
It's a moment.
That's a first round pick.
Is it still a top 16 game to me? I think so. I think I still put it somewhere in there just because of how ridiculous it was. But I'm gonna take that basketball pick I had at the end over that still.
Some other baseball honorable mentions just while we're here. Tony's first win in Omaha. I mean, I almost picked that with my last pick. Everyone forgets about them beating Stanford, but you did it against a great arm in Quinn Matthews, and Chase Burns again went insane. So that game, I think, flies under the radar. The 23 Super I mentioned over Southern Miss, and both SEC championship wins, I think, have to count for something. Tennessee was expected to win both of those big time, so it wasn't a shock or anything. And the LSU game, I think, was a little bit better than the Florida game, but those two, I think, still need to be acknowledged a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in Evansville to win Game 3 in the commanding fashion that they did. Going back to the 21 theme, I think the Evan Russell 3 home run game against Vanderbilt with the grand slam, Max Ferguson walk off against Arkansas, like those early moments of Tennessee baseball showing that they can be a national program, and kind of knocking down the door to break onto the scene.
Chase Burns' first bullpen outing against Vandy, or maybe it was the second, but first big time one when Tennessee flipped the script on that 23 season, Griffin Merritt walk-off. That one was the turning point of that year. So
as exciting.
Go ahead.
Those 21 wins were, I think that those get left off because you didn't win the series. I think that
for sure.
That everyone else was such a big swing. Max Ferguson, but the fact that you weren't able to take 2 out of 3, I think, is why they probably don't make the cut. And then obviously also baseball's gone on to do bigger and better things, which doesn't help either.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's why they don't make it. Regular season baseball games are just tough to put on there. Okay, a couple more honorable mentions I have, and Rick, you haven't named any. We can kind of go back and forth. Basketball win, I think, is better than I would have had on there. Over 24 Auburn, over 25 Alabama is 24 win in Rupp Arena. That was one of the most charged up crowds.
That's fair.
And Tennessee just played such a good game. DK was,
was that the one where they had over 100 points?
Yeah, won like 101 to 92. And the fact that they showed that night they weren't just a Dalton Connect parade. Zakai Ziegler, 27 and 13, one of the greatest games of point guard play I've ever witnessed with my own eyes. Josiah Jordan James, legacy game, 27 points, I believe, as well. Santi played well. Tennessee got production from everybody. They'd gotten, as Rick and I had experienced, the 2 trips to Rupp we had made together working at RTI. Tennessee had gotten run really in both those games. And again, that was one of the best atmospheres. That crowd was revved up and ready to roll. And it just felt like such a big time game. There was a triple header on ESPN that day that was Houston, Kansas, top 5 game, Duke, North Carolina, top 10 game. And it was like, all right, here's the main event. Tennessee, Kentucky in the nightcap. That one felt amazing.
Yeah. Jack had mentioned a second ago, but I do have the SEC tournament championship over LSU baseball. I think that one was a big one. Again, just a marquee team. Not on the scale. I don't think it was even in consideration for any of these top 16 picks or whatever. But I also think that going back to Norman last year for Josh Heupel was a big win. And one that maybe we expand the list out a little bit. You might be able to add in, Tennessee goes back in, and you talk about an emotionally charged game, and Tennessee did have a lot of fans there. So it wasn't just like the most daunting environment they've ever faced. But there was a lot of pressure on for Josh Heupel to go back and win that game. College Game Day was there. They're doing all these feature stories about, your time here. And you really don't hear it about, during his whole 4 or 5 year stretch in Knoxville. But during that 1 week, you hear all about his exit from Oklahoma and the firing, what Bob Stoops said, and all this that goes on. Scapegoat conversations and such. So for Tennessee to go in there to win that game, and then obviously I think that video of him in the locker room stands out to a lot of Tennessee fans elsewhere.
Hindsight hurts that game. I was going to say, yes, Oklahoma being so bad in the end hurts that.
Yes,
that felt a lot bigger at the time than I think it does. 12 or 10 months later.
The South Carolina game is kind of a similar vein to that Oklahoma game to me, where it's like charged up, big atmosphere, big crowd, and it's not the biggest win against the biggest team, but it's still a memorable win.
I think if Kamal had it, if we're doing moments, I think Kamal had pick 6 to me would have made the top 16.
Yeah. Tennessee's 2024, they clinched their outright SEC championship against South Carolina.
Yeah, that was good South Carolina team then too.
Yeah, I think that one was good. And then my final one, it's a championship victory nonetheless. I've already told you guys about this one, but in December 2024, a trio of students by the name of Beckett Anderson, Sarah Chandler, and Ben Northern, they won the University of Tennessee, the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Championship. They went all the way to Rocky Top to Sin City. They took Las Vegas by storm, and they brought Tennessee a Microsoft Excel National Championship. It might not be on the gridiron. It might not be on the hardwood, but they did their jobs that day. As Josh Heupel would say, they played better than the last play. They kept the things moving forward, and they came away with the national championship. So I don't know any of those 3 people, but I do know that they brought some sort of national championship back to Rocky Top from Sin City.
I don't know how I forgot about this. This is way better than the Kelly Harper win I mentioned. No disrespect to the Kelly Harper squads, but Tennessee Lady Vols beating Ohio State this last year on the road in the round of 32 to get back to the Sweet 16.
Oh, good one.
That's a good one. Sarah Puckett, corner 3 against Belmont to get them back to the Sweet 16. That's more of a moment, I think, than a game, especially considering it was Belmont. But Belmont's good enough to get to the round of 32 in the first place. I also should say quickly before we get out of here, no softball picks. I think that's one of those situations where the expectations for softball have been raised to such a level that not getting to that College World Series, like that final series, now is like there's just such a it's such a strong program that the expectations are so high right now that you could throw in some of those super regional wins, like at home against Texas 3 years ago, or this past year, I think it was against Nebraska, or even as recent as that just ridiculous UCLA game with the appendix something in the rule book coming out on the home run.
Yeah.
There's a couple
I think
moments, yeah. But
so
I feel
like let me tell you,
but
much to Ryan Schumpert's joy, I did ask ChatGPT this question, and they did have 2 softball victories in the top 8. Now we don't have time to go through it all. You're welcome.
We don't know. We have working brains, so we don't
8.
need to ask ChatGPT about what we've watched.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious. You simulate football games. I simulate some AI responses. Here is what the final. Here's what
we're not doing the final tally. Couple more.
No, I'm
not
doing it. I just said it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Rapid fire. Florida football this past year. Vanderbilt football this past year.
I thought about that one too.
Yeah.
Alabama basketball win in 2024.
Yes.
College game day was there.
Yes.
We're going moment. The Tennessee took the lead on a Jemai Meshack corner 3. Jemai steals the inbound, steals the pass up the court, saves it. Zakai to Jonas and 1. That singular moment, I think, would have been up there. And then 21 football win at Kentucky, first ranked win at Josh Heupel's tenure.
Yeah.
Alontae Taylor pick 6. That's
a good moment. The pick 6 is a great moment there too.
Yeah. Which one was that last one?
Kentucky
football win at Kentucky in 21. Yeah. First ranked win.
21 moment.
Shootout.
Shane Beamer on the sideline down like 35-0. That's a good football moment from 21.
Great football moment from 24. Josh Heupel calling Gaston Moore gas pipe and Nico Iamaleava at 8.
Gas pipe. Gas pipes over with Alex Golish at USF now as of Tuesday morning. Read about it on RocketTopInsider.com.
That's right. Those are good ones. We might have to come back with a moments draft at some point. I think that was my takeaway from this thing.
I think there's a couple other fun drafts we could do before football season actually gets here.
Yeah, we got much more to get to, but here we lost Jack along the way. That's why you haven't heard him in a minute. He's got other Omaha Productions things to attend to. But here is what the final tally ended before we wrap this thing up. Ryan Sylvia had the 2022 Alabama game, the Creighton basketball win, the women's basketball win over UConn, and Tennessee basketball's 2025 win over Alabama at home. I myself had the national championship, the Orange Bowl victory, the 2022 SEC tournament title, and DK's 39-point showing in 2024 against Auburn. Jack Foster had the Kentucky win over the Tennessee win over Kentucky in the NCAA tournament this past spring, the Tennessee win over LSU football in 2022, the win over Florida State in the College World Series, and the win over Clemson in the Clemson Regional. And then Ryan Schumpert with the 4th and 5th picks of the draft had the win over Florida football in 2022, the win over Alabama football in 2024, the win over LSU in the 2021 Supers, and what he calls the most underrated win of the Danny White era, the basketball win over Duke in the 2023 NCAA tournament. I think that's a pretty good list. I think with the honorable mentions, we kind of, finished off some good thought bubbles there, but I think everybody had a pretty good one. Initial thoughts on who might have won.
Can't pick yourself.
Question.
Can't pick yourself because everyone's going to pick themselves.
Yeah, I think it's mine.
I like Jack's a good bit.
I think he reached on the LSU
Kentucky,
game.
LSU. I don't think I think that's where we differ. I don't think he reached there. So I think that one is a good second round pick.
I just can't the value I got with Duke in that last pick.
He's still gonna pick himself.
Unbelievable value.
It's a good one. Honestly, I forgot about that. It wasn't on my list. I forgot about it. So that is a good.
So, on my list. That might hurt me with the voters. Voters, y'all know. Y'all got to tap back into how much you were doubting Rick Barnes before that game.
No, that is so. It was prime Rick in March. It was prime that type of feeling. I might go Rick. I don't want to go. Part of me is just like, you cannot pick Rick because he is such a big moment merchant on this list. Like he's like, it's the postseason. I got to pick. He's trying to pick an entire SEC tournament run. Like that'll.
Wow.
That was egregious that he tried to pull.
But I'll probably still lean towards Rick if I had to pick.
I just think I think Rick's value with the Orange Bowl in the second round is terrible value.
I agree. That was way low. I don't personally. If you're not in the playoffs right now, I couldn't care less about your bowl game.
New Year's 6. I think it was a big deal.
I think
it was.
It was a big deal. It was like a 4th round pick.
it's a 3rd or 4th round pick for sure.
No, it would have gotten snatched up.
However,
for sure.
2024
definitely wouldn't have gotten snatched up before your 3rd round pick, because Sylvia would not have taken it.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't taking it.
Yeah.
And I also wasn't taking the SEC tournament game either. So you could have waited for both of those personally. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think that's, if you look
I
at the
might have
list,
taken the SEC tournament.
you glance at the list. Rick is a big game merchant. He loves March Madness. He loves these big games. I only had one actual NCAA tournament game with the Creighton win. My other 3 ones are regular season. So maybe I need to get my priorities straight in terms of big wins. But I'll lean Rick.
Yeah. I do have the advantage of having the only national championship on the list, and that's just the way the cards fell. So I think that was a big boost. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Hey, if you're listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment about what you would have had where, about who won in your list. Again, who you think might have taken the victory here between the 4 of us. But there's going to be a lot more coverage coming up. And this was sort of just a fun way to start our football adventure that's coming up, as we are not many days away from Tennessee Media Days that will be happening in Knoxville before fall camp, and then everything that fall camp will entail. We are so thrilled to have Ryan Sylvia on the team for us, and with Ryan and Jack added in as well. I think we have a tremendous crew that's setting up very well to bring you all the latest Tennessee news, notes, and coverage that happens during Tennessee football, and of course the rest of the seasons that are to unfold this year. So, hey, thanks so much for listening. Go ahead and give us a tweet at Rocky Top Insider if you want to pick who you think might have won that battle today. If you're in the YouTube comments, go ahead and leave a note about what you might have picked where, or if we missed anything along the way, or at least who won the battle. That's going to be it for us. If you want to follow Ryan Sylvia, you can do that at Ryan T. Sylvia. If you want to follow Ryan Schumpert, you can do that at rshump00. If you want to follow Jack, you can do that at Jack Foster Media, and myself is at Ric_Butler, all on X. Otherwise, just making sure you're checking out RockyTopInsider.com each and every day. We are on every social media platform, and boy, do we have a lot of good stuff coming for you just around the corner. Thanks so much for listening to the RTI Press Pass today, and have a good one.